still be happy. You can do whatever you like. You don't have to be ready.
Hey cuties, and welcome to part 1 of me sharing all of my female CC bottoms. Part 2 of this will be following Friday in 2 weeks, so on the 15th of December. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you haven't already and don't want to miss that upload. As always, next week there's going to be a CC haul. We do those every 2 weeks, so if you want to stay up to date with things, make sure to subscribe. As always, you can find CC links to everything in the description down below. Of course, I added numbers to the video again as well, just to make it a lot easier for you to find the CC you're looking for. Just a quick reminder though, because I have been getting a few more comments recently again about why I don't just put all of these CC items into a folder. It's against CC creators' TOUs to re-upload their CC, so out of respect we're not going to do that. We're just going to have a look at everything, and I feel like it's better that way anyways, because then you can just pick and choose what you want instead of having 400 new CC items in your game. But just a little disclaimer, I will also make sure to link you to a playlist of all of my previous CC showcases. There is CC like literally from each and every category: makeup, jewelry, skin details, presets. I don't think I have done presets yet. Hold on a minute, we have to do presets at some point soon. But it's also not just for female sims. I have videos up for male sims, for your kids, for your toddlers. It's all there if you're looking for it. But without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. If you've been here for a while, you should know the drill by now. This video is gonna take a hot minute, so grab a snack, grab a drink, grab whatever you need to be comfy for the next few minutes and just sit back, relax. Let's talk about life. I hope you're all doing well. Let me know what your weekend plans are if you're still here and listening. I suppose a lot of people would just skim through the video, so if you listen to these videos, let me know and I'd love to hear what you are doing this weekend. My weekend is going to be a bit more busy than my usual weekends because on Saturday it was my little cousin's birthday on like a few days ago on the 29th. I always will remember that because he was born when I was 12, I believe. I think he turned 16. And when I was 12, I remember I wanted him to be desperately like born in the same month as me. It was just like the biggest deal for me. I was like, he needs to be born in November, and then he was born on the 29th, and I was just like so thrilled that he was born in the same birth month as me. It was like the most exciting thing for me when I was younger, so I'll forever remember that date, even though I do have a hard time remembering people's birthdays. Not so much the date itself. Like if I know a person for a long time and I really like them, I'll have no issue like remembering what day their birthday is on, but actually remembering to say happy birthday is quite hard for me. I feel like I just never know what day it is, and then also because of my ADHD, a lot of times I have something saved on my phone and I'm like, oh, I have to do this, and then I just get distracted with like a million other things, and then I'm like, oh, I have to like say happy birthday to them, but obviously I don't want to do it in between things. Like I want to take my time to like write a nice message or call depending on who it is, and then I just completely forget about it, and then a few days later I'm like, oh my god, I'm such an idiot, I forgot to message. I hate that I'm like that. Honestly, it happens way too much, and I always hate when it does, because I do think about the person, like weeks in advance. I'm like, oh, it's almost their birthday, so I do know when it's their birthday. It doesn't happen with like my immediate family or like very close friends. Like I wouldn't forget their birthdays, but like people that you don't see or talk to as much, it happens way too often. It's not really my strong suit, let's say, but I'm gonna see him and my family on Saturday. I think we're going to this like buffet, like all you can eat buffet. I think it's a Chinese one, which we've gone to a few times. If it's the same one, I think it is, if I remember correctly. And they have these huge prawns that oh my god, I eat so many of them when I'm there. It's like all I do. I eat like a few noodles and then like shrimp. It would be very upsetting for me if I ever started developing what is it called? Allergy. Oh my god, why would my brain just completely cut out there? It's not even like a difficult word or a word you don't use that much. I don't know what happened there. Does your brain sometimes do that? Sometimes it just like completely shuts off and I'm like, what are words? What is language? I don't know, help. But yeah, I hope I won't develop an allergy against them. I feel like you can always develop an allergy, right? Is that right? I think you can. I feel like it's probably not as likely as being born with one. Do you get born with them? Like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. I don't know if you get born with them or if they develop throughout the years. Or I mean, most things you wouldn't even find out until later because you wouldn't eat them. Like nuts. When do you give your children nuts for the first time? You know, like it will take a while until they can properly chew them. And I feel like baby foods usually just have veggies in them. I don't know. I'm talking about something I have no idea about. I'll just embarrass myself. So let's close that chapter, open a different book. I don't like it here. I feel like there's so many things in life though where I have no idea about it. I just remember that like I went to an allergy test once, which, oh my god, if you've ever had one done, I mean, they don't hurt. It's just, to me, horrendous. I remember that I had 2 of them done. Once when I was a child and I was like so scared of needles and it was like the most horrible experience ever. And then I did it a few years ago. I feel like, well, a few years ago. I was a teen. I was probably like 18. So it's like a decade ago. My god, I can still remember it though. That's so weird. I'm getting old. Really getting old. But I remember like being there and I had to get it done, I think because when I was a teen, I used to have a lot of issues, like feeling very dizzy and like, I don't know, it was just like a bit weird. So they wanted to do a bunch of different tests, one of them being an allergy test. And I went and I was so scared because of that experience I had as a child where I absolutely hated it. I feel like it was at my regular children's doctor who was like very nice. So it wasn't on his behalf. It was just because I hated needles. And it wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't bad at all. It was one of these things where I feel like I just have a childhood trauma where I just remember it being absolutely awful, and then the anticipation of it is a lot worse than when you actually do it. You're like, oh, this is not a big deal. It's the same with like getting my blood drawn. Every time I have to do it, I don't ever do it, but every time I have to do it, the anticipation of it is so bad, and it never hurts. And afterwards I'm always like, it wasn't that bad, but like the whole anticipation and the fear around it is what makes it bad. And I feel like that's so shitty when you have like a childhood trauma, because like I know rationally getting your blood drawn is not a big deal. Like people do it all the time. It doesn't hurt. Maybe it's like slightly uncomfortable. You know, it's like a thing people do all the time. But for me, because I had a very traumatic experience as a child, I will just hold on to that fear, and it's so frustrating. And I know for a fact that when I have children, I really don't want to be the person that takes them to get their blood drawn, because I feel like my fear will just translate onto them, and it's gonna be so hindering for them, like especially with something like getting your blood drawn, which is something you have to do not all the time but like quite frequently. I feel like at least it's good. I think you're supposed to do it like once a year. With something like that, I don't want to give them my fear that will then make them scared all the time when they have to do like everyday things that are good for your health to get like checkups. So yeah, it will have to be the future dad who takes them, I'm afraid. It's not gonna be me. Even though I don't know if I could. I mean, I would obviously try my hardest not to say I'm scared, but just seeing it, I feel like I would be so scared, and I feel like kids could sense that. I mean, other people probably could too, because I'd probably like internally be very nervous, and I feel like your children would just pick up on that and then also be nervous. So it's probably best to send them with a parent that doesn't have an issue with it and can like give them the confidence, you know. I feel like there's a lot of those things though when you think about having children, where you're like, okay, how would I do X, Y, Z? I think it's like important to think about though, and I feel like nowadays there's so many things we know that it's like it's not easier than ever. It's not what I mean, but it's like easier to not give your children certain issues in their future life if you like looking them up and trying them out. Like for example, things with food, like food related stuff, I feel like back in the day people would talk about them in such a bad way, so people who are like prone to develop difficulties with that were like definitely developing them, whilst nowadays we know how mental health works a lot better, so it should be making it easier for us to raise our kids that way. How did we even get here? I feel like I'm just like getting myself into very difficult like talks here, because obviously it's not easy to raise children. Like, I'm not saying that. It's just there's, maybe let's say it like that, there's just more knowledge we have. So if you're willing to learn and try, there is that knowledge that you can look up. Whilst back in the day, I remember my grandma told me that when my dad was younger and he would cry, they would tell her, like the doctors and stuff would tell her to just put him in the kitchen and wait until he stops crying and then return to him, which is like one of the worst things you could do to a baby, because they don't cry to be naughty, you know, they just cry because they need their basic needs filled. So it's like very horrible to do. And back then people obviously thought they would do it for attention, which is so silly, because having attention from your parents is like a basic need as a baby, like being comforted, or maybe they're like in pain, have a bellyache. It's like the most natural thing, and so important for babies to learn that your parents will tend to you when you're upset. So that's like super yikes that was what we once thought was a good thing. I remember my grandma saying though that she did it once and then she never did it again, because she was like, this is horrible, like I can't do it. So props to her to like sticking with her gut even when the doctors told her to do something different. Like, I feel like back then it would have been so difficult to raise children. I don't know, I can't even imagine, especially because I just listened to an audio book of it's like a scientific book of, it's called Invisible Women, of gender bias in data. And it was really interesting because it went into like all of these different parts of research where they have done studies and completely ignored like having women in those studies as well, or segregating the data for women and men, especially when it comes to like medication and stuff, or yeah, like pretty much that. And there were like so many things that it went into, where whenever I listened to that book, it was mainly when I was in the kitchen making my dinner, and I just stood there like shaking my head the whole time, being like, I can't believe this is happening. But like back then it must have been even harder, because nowadays women still do more of like the unpaid labor, so like taking care of your children, doing stuff around the house, having like a lot of mental load where you're like, okay, my children have to be there and there tomorrow, I need to pack this, I need to make sure the laundry is done for them, you know, like stuff like that, like mental load that women mostly still carry these days, because they tend to be the ones who do all of that labor that is unpaid. And back then it was like, obviously all women and men would just come back from work and literally like put their feet on the table and wait for dinner and not do anything, and women had to do everything all the time. I don't even know how I would have coped with that, because I'm not very resilient to stress, and not having a partner who helps around the household, I can't even imagine. And I'm glad that it's changing. It's like slowly changing. I feel like all of us have to make an effort to work towards a world where we're all, you know, doing more equal things. Because I feel like even though I would say I'm a feminist and I like think about all of these things, and like I make sure that my boyfriend would do, I mean, he is like super clean, he's more tidy than me, but even if I would make sure he does all of these things, I feel like there's still this like underlying guilt of being like, oh, but I didn't do the dishes, when it's like, yes, but you did something else, and it should be equal, you know, because that's just how we've been raised. I don't know, I just went way too deep here. But the book was very interesting, and it was very sweet, because I don't know if you guys know about Goodreads, like if you're a reader you probably would. It's just like a social media platform all around books, so you can like say what books you want to read, you can set yourself a reading goal for the year, you can track your progress on books, you can see what your friends are reading, all of that. And my little cousin asked me for a book for his birthday, so I was like, do you have Goodreads, because then I could check what you read, what you like. And he didn't, but he made himself a Goodreads account, and it was so cute, because when I said that I had like started reading this book, he instantly put it on his want to read list. And I think that is just so cute to have like this 16-year-old boy wanting to read a book about sexism, pretty much, in science. I don't know, it was very nice and heartwarming. I thought it was extremely adorable, because I feel like this coming generation, a lot of people talk a lot of crap about them, but I feel like mental health and like inequalities as so much more of a topic, and I think that is so great. And it's always super heartwarming to see for me that younger people are interested in these things, because When I was 16, I probably would have not wanted to read a book like that, even if it was for my benefit specifically, because I'm a woman. So yeah, kudos to him for like wanting to read that. I was very proud. I was a very proud older cousin. But anyways, the video's coming to an end. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you all next time. Bye!